This is Miller Philosopher. Across Tolkien's legendarium, the Valar often feel like they're watching Middle-earth through a window. A few exceptions exist, like Umo, maybe Yavanna on a good day, but most of them don't intervene until late or rarely, or sometimes not at all. And by the Third Age, that involvement went from being subtle to basically non-existent. Sure, they sent the wizards, and sure, they rejected Saruman's spirit when he tried to crawl back to Valinor after he was killed in Middle-earth. Like, seriously, what exactly was he planning here? But overall, the Valar seemed to have emotionally just checked out, and that bothered me. So I started asking myself, what would make divine guardians decide that the world they shaped is better off without them? And the answer for that actually came from another franchise, Star Trek. So, in Star Trek, the Federation has one rule that overrides everything else, the Prime Directive. No interference with developing civilizations, no meddling in internal affairs, and that rule didn't come from idealism. It came from disaster, from first contact situations that went catastrophically wrong. And through that lens, suddenly Tolkien's Valar started making a lot more sense to me. In the beginning, the Valar were very much hands-on, trying to shape the world as they entered into it, but also fighting many wars with Melkor, a renegade Valar who was basically stuck in his own narcissism and nihilism, who wanted to control everything, and if he couldn't control it, he would destroy it. However, in spite of that, the Valar shaped the world and prepared it for the children of Iluvatar, and tried to build something beautiful, Almaren, the first home of the Valar. It wasn't perfect, and it definitely was not the flawless vision of Uru that they had been given before this beginning of time, but it was close enough that Melkor felt threatened, so he destroyed it. The destruction, however, wasn't just physical. It was emotional. A divine apocalypse that scarred the Valar so deeply that after repairing Arda into its, as Tolkien says, marred version, they retreated to Valinor and then decided to remain there, focusing on what they could control. However, it seems like to me that they felt that the rest of Middle-earth just became more or less too far gone in the corruption of Melkor. A reminder, so to speak, of their failure from the very beginning, and I didn't want to look at it. The second catastrophe was the Battle of the Powers, when the Valar had discovered the elves and they decided to intervene again, because they were now under direct threat from Melkor, who had already captured, tortured, and corrupted many of them into the first orcs, depending of course on which version you want to go with. So, the Valar went to war, again, and this war was so devastating that the entire northern hemisphere of Middle-earth was permanently altered, permanently scarred, even deep into the Third Age. And this essentially reinforced two Valyrian beliefs: that Middle-earth was too far gone to be able to handle their power, even if trying to heal it or save it, and two, that the elves needed to be removed from the danger and corruption, even if that meant separating them from that world that they were meant to inhabit. Now, of course, Umo disagreed, as he always does. And like Starfleet captains of the Star Trek universe, who bend the Prime Directive when they feel like it, Umo and those inspired by him, like Melian, decided to keep intervening anyway. But the majority of the Valar were shaken, and they were starting to fear their own strength and power. And then the War of Wrath happened, and that was more or less the final straw. When Morgoth had to be stopped once and for all the Valar made a crucial decision: to send the Eldar and Maiar to fight in their stead and not go themselves. Even Umo, who had been active in Middle-earth at that point in time, chose not to show up in person on the battlefield. And despite this lighter touch, the War of Wrath still reshaped the continent, destroying Beleriand and causing yet another apocalypse. Another reminder that their power breaks the world that they're trying to save. Then, Númenor happened. Hope, then disaster. Because for a brief moment during the Second Age, from the beginning to its middle point, the Valar seemed to re-engage again. They created Númenor. They extended the life of the human survivors from the First Age. They gave humanity its greatest civilization, Númenor. And then Númenor fell, eventually. Sauron had manipulated them under the Valar's very noses, and the resulting apocalypse was the worst yet seen since the fall of Almaren, that reshaped all of Arda into its round structure that we all know. This is the point where the Valar's Prime Directive became not philosophy, but survival for Middle-earth. Uru himself had decided to remove Valinor from the world, and the message was clear. Stop intervening because you're doing a lot more harm than good, even though Uru was the one who did that last apocalypse. So, by the Third Age, the Valar had one last idea to help people deal with Sauron. Send the wizards, 5 Maiar, limited in power, in memory, and authority. A divine workaround, but still a way to help without breaking the world again. To inspire the elves, men, and dwarves that remained to action and resist Sauron's evil. But even that didn't fully work. 2 disappeared. 1 fell. 1 got distracted by birds. And then there was Gandalf. The one success after Uru stepped in and resurrected him, but before that had been killed, and thus was a failure. So, even divine subtlety wasn't subtle enough. So then, what do we make from all this? That the Valar weren't lazy, they weren't indifferent, they were just traumatized, emotionally naive, and terrified of repeating the same pattern over and over again. Intervene, catastrophe, retreat, repeat. They, put simply, did not know how to help Middle-earth without destroying it. They limited themselves to divine conflicts with Morgoth and Sauron, and stayed out of every other conflict, even the horrors of the Númenorian human sacrifices. And like the Federation, all they got was diminishing returns. Good intentions weren't enough, but they still trusted in Uru's plan more than their own judgment, which is why Luthien and Eärendil's appeals during the First Age hit them so hard. Reminders to the Valar that real people were suffering under the weight of those divine mistakes, even if the greater plan was moving in the direction it should be going. And the Valar, for all their power, just simply didn't know how to fix that without breaking the world again. And that's why I think the Valar seemed so distant and cold and emotionally unavailable. But let me know your own thoughts below. This is the Middle-earth Philosopher. Have a good day.